Gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Biggs, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I understood in testimony to Mr. Ratcliffe that you said that you were supervising the Inspector General and his team's review.
Pardon me. The Inspector General reports to the Deputy Attorney General. In the conduct of the investigation, the Inspector General traditionally has a high degree of autonomy, so I'm not micromanaging it, but I'm aware of the investigation and aware that we anticipate a conclusion in the near future.
Is he providing you substantive reports, or is he providing you timeline reports?
Generally, timeline reports when there are significant issues that arise in his investigations, as for example with the text messages that came up in the review of the Hillary Clinton email investigation. He brings that to my attention.
And I am curious about the scope of the Inspector General's review. My understanding is it's to review allegations that department policies or procedures were not followed in connection with or in actions leading up to or related to former Director Comey's July 2016 announcement that Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton would not be charged in her use of a private email server while Secretary of State. Is that the limitation of the scope, or is it broader than that? And what are the boundaries?
I believe it's broader than that. The Inspector General, I believe, was scheduled to testify today, and it'd be better to direct it to him. But he actually has publicly talked about the scope of the investigation and identified a number of matters within the scope of that investigation. And so it's relatively broad, I believe.
Well, in light of that, Director Wray was here last week, and in questioning, he said that he would try to unring the bell if the Inspector General's conclusions indicated that there was something that had gone amiss with the Hillary Clinton investigation. I asked him what that meant, and he alluded to some of the personnel issues and remedial personnel action, but he also said that he thought they might reopen that original investigation if necessary. Is that your understanding as well?
I don't know exactly what he said. It's hard to unring bells, but we do make every effort, Congressman, to take appropriate action if something comes to our attention. So I would certainly support Director Wray if he feels there's justification for reviewing that.
And I'm not just talking about reviewing, I'm talking about reopening the investigation. Is that, if that's the direction you'd concur with that? If that's the direction you want?
I mean, it's certainly conceivable. It would depend upon the facts and circumstances, but if he felt it was appropriate to do that, I would certainly give that great weight.
Additionally, I just thought it was interesting that you previously, and I'm quoting from, this came from the media, so I don't know if it's accurate now. That's just my skepticism. But it says, if there were conflicts, this is you speaking, if there were conflicts that arose because of Director Mueller or anybody employed by Director Mueller, we have a process within the department to take care of that. And just now, you've indicated that I think that those processes include the tone around the office, everything's subject to review by a supervisor, and the Inspector General could be called in if there's something amiss. But the bottom line is you ultimately have to prove the case in court, so there's some checks and balances built into the system. But previously, Director Wray and Attorney General Session testified in this committee that there are no formal processes to discover individual conflicts of interest or vet for and I'm going to call unfair bias, because everybody has some bias, it's just whether it's unfair or not. They both said it's left up to each individual. Would you concur with their bottom line assessment there?
To a large extent, Congressman, I would say it's left to the individual, but also to the supervisor. The supervisor has a responsibility to know if there's some reason for concern and should take appropriate action and do an inquiry if there is a basis for it.
And another issue that we've touched on today, and this has been brought up repeatedly, is this idea of integrity, independence, adherence to the rule of law, and this idea that we don't want to lose faith in the rule of law. And one of the things that I cannot convey to you in strong enough terms is that when I go home to my constituents, there is a real sense that there is disparity going on in how the current administration is being treated, and with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. I understand a lot of that is the divisiveness that's in the nation, a lot of that is partisanship, I understand that. But some of the things that we've talked about today, whether it's the Strzok issue, Bruce Orr, and Jeannie Ray, Aaron Zabley, Andrew Weissman, et cetera, it isn't the money that people donate to campaigns. I think we've established that. It is what did they do beyond that? What did Aaron Zabley do? Set up the private email server, Representative Cooper, who set up the private email server and destroyed Clinton computers, hard drives, and drives. I mean, these are actions. These are actions that someone took, and it's not necessarily a mere bias that we might have or an unfair bias. It's just something that goes beyond that, and it taints this investigation. And that is the reason that so many of us, it's not because we don't think Director Mueller is a war hero and has done great service to this country. It is simply that it has tainted everything around this investigation so that I can't go home without people decrying it in loud terms. And so I think that's what needs to happen. I think we need more information. Some of this information came out through FOIA requests, some through the Inspector General, but some of it not very timely. And I do agree with the chairman here. This committee has jurisdiction. We need to be getting this information timely. And with that, my time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. Handel, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time today. I am having a little trouble reconciling some comments from your opening statement with the realities. You said justice requires a fair and impartial process. And I think we could both agree that to have a fair and impartial process, no appearance even of conflict of interest or bias needs to be present. I want to ask specifically, it's my understanding that the text messages and emails that Strzok sent were specifically labeled, quote, mid-year exam or MYE or ME, which was the code name for the Clinton email investigation. Were those emails and text messages, were they put into the Sentinel case management system at the FBI?
To the best of my knowledge, no, but I can check and get back to you.
I would appreciate an answer to that. Thank you. With the revelations regarding Strzok, Page, and others from the Mueller team, has Special Investigator Mueller taken any specific action on the remaining member of the teams to ferret out whether they too have these types of biases and perhaps have sent such text messages or emails?
As I mentioned, I've talked with Director Mueller about the importance of ensuring the integrity and neutrality of everybody working on the investigation. I don't know precisely what steps he's taken.
If you're supervising this, don't you think that would be something you should know?
Yes, and I can assure you, Congresswoman, based on his reputation, I'm confident that he knows what to do to ensure that his team is not biased.
Okay. Well, apparently not, since we've just seen all of these text messages. I would like to, you said in your opening statement that there has to be a special responsibility for professional standards that rise to a truly higher standard. Do you think that the actions that we've seen rise to that standard?
Congresswoman, that's our aspiration. We recognize there are going to be deviations. I think the commitment that I have and the Attorney General is that when there are deviations, we're going to deal with them appropriately. So we can't guarantee there will be no mistakes, errors, or wrongdoing. But we can ensure that we're going to set the right tone. When anything comes to our attention, we're going to take appropriate action.
Okay. Were those text messages or emails sent on Bureau or DOJ-issued cells or other electronic devices?
I believe the answer is yes.
You said that Special Mueller acted appropriately and immediately to deal with the issue with Strzok. He was, my understanding is, reassigned to HR?
Well,
Is that correct?
Director Mueller would make the decision to no longer have him participate in the special counsel investigation.
Right.
The FBI would make the decision of where within the FBI to place him.
All right, let me be a little more succinct. Where is Strzok working now? In which department?
That's my understanding, Congresswoman. I don't know.
That it's HR?
personally. That's what I've heard. I don't know specifically.
Okay, it was reported that way. That would be very interesting. I would like to have the answer to that. It's peculiar to me that an individual under investigation by the Inspector General would be redeployed to the very division and department that is tasked with setting workplace policies. Do you think that's a little strange?
I don't, I assume that he's not setting workplace policies, but I can check
Well,
on it.
what else would you be doing in HR but dealing with personnel matters?
Well, I think processing personnel matters, I think that's largely what they do.
Interesting, a person under IG investigation, processing HR. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr.